All right, hey y'all. This is Paul C. Torino. I wanted to do a quick video. This is actually for my dad. My dad had a request to help a friend who has a child that has ADHD or has been recently diagnosed with ADHD, and they just wanted some advice on how to move forward and what to do. They've tried some different drugs, and of course I have my thoughts on it, so I felt like this would be a good video to put out to everybody. And this is just my initial thoughts, so this is not meant to take the place of any kind of medical advice or treatment, obviously. It's really meant to give you some information, my thoughts, that you can blend with your overall wisdom and maybe give you some ideas on how to approach things. And at the same time, I truly believe in our different foundational principles that we'll discuss very, very briefly here. There's no formal test for ADHD. It's really just a class of symptoms that medical doctors or the medical community goes off of, and those symptoms tend to be somewhat subjective. And there are some tests, some questionnaires that you can go through to try to determine if this is an issue or not. But I just want to go through what the main symptoms are. And you can pull these up from any medical office. You can ask any doctor. They typically have a standard set of questions that they'll go through, and maybe they use that in a discussion format, or sometimes they'll use that in a little checklist format. So, and these are the main symptoms that we tend to experience that someone will then get diagnosed with ADHD with. So fidgets with hands or feet, or squirms in seat, leaves the seat in a classroom, and we're talking about mainly children here. Young people. So leaves seat in classroom or in other situations in which remaining in seat is expected, runs about or climbs excessively in situations in which it is inappropriate, has difficulty playing or engaging in leisure activities quietly, appears on the go or acts as if driven by a motor, and then talks excessively. And then there's also an impulsive ADHD symptom questionnaire that you can go through, and it has a lot of similar things in it. So now, a lot of these things to me seem like characteristics of someone that just doesn't do good in the standard school setting format. And I'm not sure if it's just a school setting that my dad's friend is concerned with or having issues with or difficulties with. But a lot of these characteristics, remind me of a child that could be somewhat curious and inquisitive and just has a different mind than the standard. I mean, can you imagine sitting in school? I think back to what school was actually like. And in my opinion, it's almost a waste of time in a lot of ways, because you're sitting there for 8 to 10 to 12 hours, and maybe you rotate classrooms and you have some breaks in PE, but I mean, that just doesn't seem like a format that's very conducive to a creative mind that wants to be outside doing things and tinkering with things, and maybe some people respond well to that, but there's some people that don't respond well to that, and that's why we've come up with other types of educational systems like Montessori schools, and in other countries, they have a lot more creative things, and I know there's a lot of great work being done here in the United States, but if your child is overall, seems relatively healthy and is exhibiting these symptoms, that we just went through in that little questionnaire, then maybe there's nothing really wrong with your child. Maybe your child just doesn't do good in that standard school setting format, and you need to research some creative ways to put this child through some learning experiences that actually enhance what that child does best on. And I guess that's a discussion for a whole other topic. It's not really my area of expertise. And then I also think about like a lot of the symptoms that our people come to us with, like fidgeting, not being able to focus, and talking excessively, and having nervousness and impulsiveness and irritability and getting angry easy. That's what a lot of people come to us with, and to us that's an indication of being toxic, nutritionally deficient, and just this built up cumulative dysfunction that we see that happens over a lifetime that takes years and sometimes decades to somewhat manifest. And what we see when people come and work with us is like all those things tend to improve. So when people eat real food, when they structure their daily eating appropriately, when they train their body how to make its own energy and use fat for fuel, and then of course when they start to address our other foundations like getting sun exposure every day and sleeping better and meditation, I mean, some of the biggest things that we see from people is, a lot of people do come to us looking for body composition changes or to work with a specific symptom or condition like an autoimmune condition, but across the board we see people increased energy levels, more sustained energy levels, even in the afternoons, better mental clarity, better emotional stability, a desire to work with and interact with other people in a different way than happened before. Just an overall sense of well-being and a good attitude and a positive attitude and wanting to do better and wanting to do more and wanting to dream and change the course of their life in a better way and contribute more. Like, all these things happen when people become nutritionally sufficient and or reduce the toxic load that they experience on a daily basis, whether it's through the environment or pollutants or whatever. So the medical community would say that ADHD is not due to environmental factors, and yet there is no there's very minimal or little genetic predisposition to something that is known as ADHD, because it is a very subjective condition to diagnose. And what we'd say in the functional world is that it absolutely has everything to do with environmental factors. And so what we'd recommend is, don't abandon the medical system or the medical community or the advice that you're given by your doctor, but do this kind of stuff in conjunction with what you're doing and see what kind of improvements that you get, because our foundations are the low-hanging fruit. It's the easiest stuff to address, and it just might happen to change your life and change the life of your family. And when you address these foundational principles, everything changes. Like, your health changes, you're setting yourself up for health and longevity and vibrancy and vitality and quality of life later in life. And so we'd say start with these foundations and see what changes you can get, in addition to working with your medical doctor or under some kind of supervised medical care. And things like Adderall it's prescription methamphetamine. It's got various versions of meth salts. And I can tell you it's extremely addictive and contributes to poor sleep patterns, and over the long term contributes to an inability to focus. I think I've told my story to many people before. I was a self-proclaimed or self-diagnosed meth addict. I pulled myself out of that somehow, magically, just because I felt so horrible and I felt like my health was declining so bad. And then I got on prescription Adderall for a little bit, as a way to maybe rationalize or justify doing it, I don't know, the right way or something. I don't know what my deal was there, but that was so easy for me to abuse, and my life didn't change until I came out of that world. And so methamphetamine, or prescription Adderall, Ritalin, Concerta, and I'm not sure what else they may have on the market now, probably some even more intense and advanced stuff. All those things are going to be damaging to health over the long term, and they don't address the root cause of the problem, which in our opinion, again, is nutritional deficiencies and toxicities. And so the first thing that I would recommend everyone do is, there's three things that I would address, especially when it comes to ADHD. And that would, number one, be figure out real food. Get into the real food realm and learn how to train the body to be self-sufficient and self-reliant and to burn fat for fuel. Because once the body learns how to burn fat for fuel, once you develop metabolic flexibility, that's not just for all tissues in the body and all cells in the body, that's also for brain function. And we see a lot of cognitive function improve, and emotional stability and mental clarity and things like that come from just eating real food and training the body how to use fat for fuel. You have to address toxins in the home. And so things like Glade candles and Scentsies and all these different air fresheners that we're exposed to on a daily basis that we think make our home smell great are filled with toxins. Over-the-counter cleaners and dish detergents and laundry detergents and Bounce fabric softeners and all these types of things have loads of toxins in them. And so we'd recommend minimizing your toxic exposure to the best of your abilities. And again, that's a whole nother discussion, but I can provide some resources and some links to some really good resources that we use to determine which things you need to revamp in your home. We try to move away from all these different toxic things to more natural solutions. And again, maybe that's a slow transition for you, and there's a lot of education and learning that has to go through to understand what things you need to change in your home. And then the third thing is we would address the microbiome and gut health. And the way that we do that is, number one, again, we learn how to eat real food. We learn how to structure eating in a way that facilitates burning fat for fuel. But then you also have to take into account a lot of different factors that you can use to improve like gut permeability and the healing and sealing of the gut, and then also providing an environment that can facilitate a beneficial microbiome and good gut bacteria and other microorganisms to live inside of your body. because the majority of our body is not us, it's not human cells, it's actually other kind of bacteria and other organisms that live in synergy with us. And you have to learn how to facilitate that. And of course, probiotics can be very useful, but only in the context of eating real food and doing all these other things properly. So I'm going to provide some resources here, and the best recommendation that I'd have is reach out to us, because this is what we do. You work with us, there's an exchange in value. Of course, our services cost a little bit of money, but I don't think they cost that much in exchange for a lifetime of understanding what you need to do to be healthy. Our services range from $65 to $95 a session, plus we have progressions, and guaranteed you're going to see some improvements, if not complete resolution of the symptoms that you think are ADHD related. But if at the very worst, you're going to figure this stuff out, you're going to see improvements, and it can work in conjunction with any medical treatment that you might have, okay? All right, and this is all said from the heart with an intention to heal and help, and let us know if you have any questions, okay? Thank you so much.